Brett is such bright light.
What we do in therapy is nothing compared to what me and Brett did today.
Thank you, Brett.
In an age of comparison and living in an uncertain world, I'm here to take you on a journey of self-empowerment by showing you what I do on a regular basis to free myself and sharing with you the teachers and the insights so you can be free as well and live a life that is truly unleashed before you die. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Super pumped to have you here. We have an amazing guest today, Peter, who's all about men's work as I am. And as you guys know, there is tremendous power in cultivating relationship with men. And there's a collective masculine wound in our society. And I know I grew up with very unhealthy masculinity around me, to make it super general and broad. And my hope today is that our amazing guest is going to help us learn how to connect with the masculine in a healthy way and the power of it, not to mention other ways to release unhealed trauma as well. So, Peter, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here, bro.
Aloha, brother. Bukaye, wagwan.
Wagwan.
Brett, brother, I'd like to start with a few breaths, if that's okay with you.
Love it.
Yeah, just to sync up. Do I have your consent?
Yes, you do.
All right, let's bring the hands together, just warming yourself up, sending that energy, that chi, that mana into your palms. Feel cool, you can shut down the eyes. However it looks like to drop into your body. I like to roll my shoulders and my neck, even make a bit of sound, shaking my legs. Breathing through the nose, out through the mouth, and keep your hands still. Bring it to your heart. Just feel your heart pumping, blood gushing, oxygenating, clarifying, cleansing, connecting with clarity. We'll breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth 3 times, beginning in 3, 2, 1. Anali. Skillamaka. Anali. Skillamaka. Last one we'll hold at the top for 7 seconds. Anali. Skillamaka. Push your palms out to the screen. Sending your energy outward. And on that last inhale, bring it back to your body. Connecting that energy to the ground. And on the last inhale, push up to the sky. Mother to the Father. Bridging. Wonderful, brother. We can open our eyes. Hey, thank you for that.
Woo! Damn, I love the body. Thank you. The body is the shit. The body guides us. The body gives us incredible sensations. Thank you, brother. Let's start with your story first, because that's an important part of why people are going to listen to you right now and why people are going to trust you with what you're going to share is that resonance with what you've been through. So is it okay to start with that?
It is. So Peter Eugene Bennet. Peter means rock. Eugene means of noble birth, and Bennet means blessed. So I'm a noble, blessed rock. And to put it into headlines, I guess, bullet points, I'm of the Abyssinian Romo tribe on my mother's side. That's modern day Ethiopia. Although we have family that came through the Sahara, teaching literacy, the Quran. So I've got Islam on my mother's side. And my father is born in British Guyana, South America, although they identify more as Caribbean. And that bloodline has Caribbean elements, Iraq most likely, as well as Brazilian. And his mother, my grandmother, is from Lancashire, which is in the north of England. And that has Celtic, Scottish, and Irish heritage. So that's my genetic makeup.
Wow, that's super cool, bro. And and I don't know that much about my genetic makeup compared to the description I just heard from you. So I'm curious, what's the value in learning about that? What has it given you to learn about your heritage?
Well, for me, part of my purpose on this planet is to be a steward, as well as be sovereign. So, being a steward means being able to tend to this land, to tread lightly, to hold in reverence and honor and respect the natural cycles. I feel very much like nature is a reflection or an inflection of human nature. I always say the inner work transforms the outer world. So, what my ancestry has given me is a connection to the land in ways that give it context, give it meaning. So, to know of my heritage, to know of my bloodline gives me a direct link back to those who came before, who I'm showing up with their gifts. I'm showing up with their blessings. I'm just a vehicle, a vessel for life to flow through and to give as much as I receive, to be a servant.
Yeah, interesting. I'm curious, was there a time when you weren't this sovereign steward, when you didn't feel connected to your purpose, when you felt disoriented or confused?
Yeah, as I'm sure many who are listening can relate. I spent a lot of my life in my head, disembodied,
Yes.
unable to feel what that heritage, what that ancestry, what that human birthright is of the heart, of the gut, of these hands and these feet. And I spent many years, particularly as a young teen, as a result of family trauma, as a result of my own ancestral trauma, as a result of society, the conditioning, the programming,
Yeah.
ultimately living from here. So
Yeah.
caught up in my own world, in my own stories, in the monkey mind that I just was disconnected from myself and others.
Yeah. Yeah. And what suffering does it cause when you're disconnected from yourself and others?
Well, I would say it shows up as mental health challenges. It can show up in physical health challenges and it can show up in spiritual health challenges, right? My system's all about self inquiry, self care, and self love. So when I was in the grips of what I call the dark night of the soul, or my soul, Saturn returns. So from my
Yeah.
16-year-old, 20-year-old, sort of early 30s, I was disconnected, bro. I was anxious, had social anxiety, hated myself, did self harm, right? Drank alcohol, did drugs, womanizing, just numbing, disassociating, retreating from the world in my hermitude, and used substances as a way to feel again, to feel.
Yes.
Simple as that. Mm.
Yeah, we've definitely lost this ability to feel, I've noticed. And I'd like to dive into some of the reasons for that, because I think if we can isolate the reasons for why we're disconnected, we've just empowered ourselves to change that.
Mm.
And I've been studying Susan McConnell's work. Do you know Susan?
She's a good friend of mine now. I mean, I recognize the name,
Oh, okay. I was
but
like, damn, that's cool.
you know what? I'll state something quickly now. I've taught myself not to say no. I feel like it's a block. It's like an energetic force field. So when someone says something, I'm like, not quite. You know, I tend to say, recognize the name. I've yet to do that. Maybe
Yes,
one day, right? As opposed to giving a complete no.
because
So
it closes that possibility off. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
exactly. And the quantum field is infinite potential. But yeah, my
Yeah,
apologies. Continue.
I love that. I think there's a lot of power in that, keeping yourself open. But anyway, Susan McConnell, your potential best friend, potentially in the quantum field,
Potentially,
that's what
yeah, out
happened.
there in the quantum. Hmm.
Well, I was reading some of her work this morning, and she was talking about our phylogenetic and ontogenic movement patterns, basically the movement patterns when we're in the womb, and our evolutionary impulses to move. And as we develop, we're learning to first yield, which is basically like surrender. Then we learn to push off and set our own boundaries. Then we learn to reach, grasp, and then pull.
Mm.
And when at any point in either of these phases of development, when there's stunted growth or imbalanced growth or a lot of conflict or stress in the home, and we can't develop our motor function in the way that nature intended, I'll say that to make it general, then we also develop social and cognitive blocks. And to tap back into our 5 basic forms of movement, the ones I just described, we can actually unfree some of the trauma that's stored. And we can also learn to, we learn what our body's true needs are. We learn, like, there's so much. Think about what grasping is. Like, it's like like grasping or reaching, stretching, maybe I overreach or stretch too far. Maybe I don't know how to pull back and receive and pull something towards me and manifest. There's so many links between how our physiology affects our mental. I just like to dive into the somatic work for a second. I know you're very big into that, and so I'd love to touch on. Let's start with your method, your flavor that you give somatic work in, and why it's powerful, and let's end with some ways that men can begin to remake that connection.
Ooh, that sent shockwaves through my body, brother.
Hell yeah.
That's part of my somatic training, is to be in tune with the sensations in the body. And for me, that began with Vipassana meditation. Are you familiar with that? Yeah.
I did my first retreat about a month ago.
Anicca. Impermanence, yeah.
Well, I have a Nietzsche in my nightmares, bro. Hearing 1,000 times a day, I'm just ready to go.
Strong determination. I won't move. So yeah, Vipassana is really powerful, bro. I did that 5 years ago. I've sat twice. I've served 3 times. I'm in the process of booking my third sitting in Ethiopia, my motherland, at some point this first half of the year. And so yeah, that was my first port call. It was through meditation, through breath. That's how it begins, right? The idea of the sensation of breath on the nostrils. Is it going down one nostril into your lungs? Is your lungs expanding? Is your belly, so plotting and tracking breath is such a beautiful way just to quieten the mind and bring focus on the body. And everyone does it, right? We all breathe. If we didn't, we would die. So there's something about the breath of life that feels like the first step on this journey to embodiment. I love the fact you said somatic as well, because I very much believe when I was doing Vipassana, they talk about the storing of trauma. They don't use those exact terms, but ultimately the embedded, the imprinted emotions, experiences, memories in the body. And through Vipassana, through really focusing on the sensations in the body, scanning these gross sensations, places of pain, for example, or the subtle sensations, these kind of little sparks, little fireflies in and on the skin and within. I started to like lift up these wounds to the surface. And so, yeah, I'd always recommend a really strong meditation practice, because embodiment isn't just about feeling the body. It's about kind of being able to submerge the mind in something greater than itself. The mind for me is just I could say like a prism, and the light shines through it and expands.
Interesting. Could you dive a bit deeper into that for me? Because I'm not quite sure I understand what that last part meant.
For sure. So to bring it back to embodiment, right? The idea of being here, present in the body, is feeling, acknowledging emotions, right? Being able to flow with the energy of the body. I could call it masculine, feminine, prana, mana, chi. So prana is breath, but it's connected. And so the mind for me, when quieted and focused, is like this laser point attention, this arrowhead that pierces through consciousness, or the conscious experience, the self, the I am. And so the more in tune my mind can be with my body, aligned, the more that I channel, the clearer I am to vibrate at the frequency of life. I liken the body to a tuning fork, right? Yeah. And when I've been low vibration, dense, eating junk food, consuming junk content, just being unconscious, sleeping badly, all the things, I wasn't able to oscillate. I wasn't able to vibrate at those higher frequencies. I was stuck in this lower dimension. And the more I've cleared my act up, the more I've been aligned and on track in purpose, a man of integrity, the more I vibrate, the clearer that signal is. And that's what I mean, like the prism of the mind, as in, you ever seen that Pink Floyd album with the triangle?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know the one.
The light shines through it. So for me, like the expression of life, the things out there, the 3, 4, 5D reality is like those lights, the spectrum, the rainbow, right? The 7 chakras that expand out of the prison of the mind, the third eye. God, I'm getting quite Getting quite esoteric here. But that third eye is that prism, and that shining light, that white pure light, is essence, its source, creator, life force.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes more sense to me now. And
Thank you for asking.
yeah, yeah. And I'm feeling that I mean I get fired up sometimes. Sometimes it turns into anger when I think about our education system.
Mm.
And when I'm hearing you speak, I'm like, okay, didn't learn this, didn't learn that, didn't learn that. And I'm not sure how helpful this anger is, but I feel it sometimes. And I wonder for you, what are some of the key things that you learned that you did not learn in the education system that you were brought up in? Were you brought up in a normal sort of education system?
More or less.
Yeah.
My
But by the way, real quick, you
Yeah.
do seem like the kind of guy who's potentially brought up in like some cool esoteric education system. I could definitely see that being the case as well.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. In my story, I tend to talk of my upbringing. I was born in London, in Hammersmith.
Yeah.
Lived in Olympia, which is in West London, for the first 2 years, and then moved to Bangladesh. My father was a civil engineer before he retired, which brought him to different parts of the world, focusing on irrigation, basically working with the people, the locals, to upgrade and update their irrigation systems. And in Bangladesh, he was working on monsoon protection, flood protection, because it rains a lot, and then like farmlands get washed away, villages, and he was helping in that kind of philanthropic uh, way. So yeah, I was born here in London, so I have that London kind of streetwise, but also the education of schooling and the old Victorian system of you call us sir or madam, you never use our first name. Children are to be seen, not heard, just in these worker bees in our little cubicles with our desk. Which I think is what you're speaking to in some ways about the education system.
Yeah.
It's built to kind of suppress as opposed to express, right? For us to really find our voices. But having been in Bangladesh and traveled around Asia as a young child, I picked up on things. When I was in India, I was very drawn to Hinduism. I had statues of Krishna, of Ganesha. I got all these comic books about all the stories of the gods. It was like superheroes, but they were connected to spirituality and really empowering, narratives. So to answer your question, my education was definitely typical to some degree. However, like I had the privilege, the opportunity to see the world as a young child, and that gave me a different kind of perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so valuable to be able to see the world at that young of an age. And for me, when I think about the education system, what I think about is in relation to what you do, you're huge into men's work. Your Instagram handle, for anyone who wants to check him out, is Peter Men's Work Coach. Is that right?
It's men's work coach.
Oh,
Yeah,
just men's work coach, not even
just
Peter.
men's work coach. Yeah, you
Oh,
can check
you're
out
the
the
one that got the
website.
handle.
Oh yeah, bro, I was quick off the draw. Yeah.
Dude, I've messaged people to get my real name as a handle. I found the guy who has
Mm,
my name, Brett Bailey, and he
mm,
wouldn't give it to me. So that's awesome that you got the handle. But
yeah.
what I'm asking is the relationship father to son and how to relate in a healthy way with our peers at school. I'm not sure about you. For me, I experienced a lot of I guess like intense competition. I experienced bullying. I was a bully at
Mm,
times as well.
mm, mm,
My relationship with my sexuality held a lot of shame because it wasn't talked about in my family. In fact, it was
mm,
hidden and shamed. And so me and my friends kind of like explored our sexuality in some ways together when we were like 11, 12, just in a group of boys. And so I'd like to know from you, what are some of the changes you'd like to see in our culture around how boys grow up?
mm. Great question, and thank you for sharing some of your story. And I very much relate and resonate with that idea of boys exploring not just sexuality, but the world. And especially as someone who went to boarding school, I actually grew up from the age of 9 till I was 18 in a mixed school, so girls and boys, but we would live in houses, all boys. In a place called Glastonbury, which is one of the spiritual epicenters of England, of the UK, of Europe, actually. And to answer your question, I believe in rites of passage. We as kids had them, but these weren't your indigenous wisdom traditions, the old ways, the ways of the ancestors. I feel are so raw and primal and like tap into archetypes, something deep within the human psyche that transcends time and space. We had like hazing, things of like older kids making us do things like standing on the cupboards at night if we were noisy and holding books in our hands. And anytime they would drop, they'd like bash us, or they'd use cards to like hit our knuckles, or we'd have to sit on the bus carrying their books and things like that. No, what I say is go into nature, learn how to build a fire, learn how to survive, right? Find the water source, acknowledge that we are a part of the cycle. So in winter, what is it that we do? We retreat, we hibernate, be in tune internally and externally with the seasons. So yeah, I can tell you a little story if we've got enough time around. I haven't really said this on the podcast yet, but I tend to tell people a lot. So my rite of passage, right, despite all the hazing, like I never bought into that. I didn't really, I wasn't bothered about people doing that as a young kid, because I had like a bit more like self-worth, self-esteem. I wouldn't let it get to me, and I tended to say no. But when I was young, maybe about like 7, my mum let me out of her sight for the first time because she was driving King Park, and as one of my after-school treats, I was allowed to get a McDonald's. So the first time I left my mother's side, I went into a restaurant, a store. I handed money to a cashier. It was a McDonald's. He gave me this magical Happy Meal. It's like finding the Ark of the Covenant, or like the elixir, the fountain of life, right? Like true initiation, but the golden arches. So, that was one thing. Then it was like a bowl of merch, which had Ronald McDonald, like cheese. Every time I finished my meal, it was like another bit of like brain washing or mind control. And then I upgraded from the Happy Meal to the extra value meal. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm a man now, So now, even in my 30s, I find in times of comfort, when I'm feeling sensitive, I'm feeling wounded, I retreat to my cave. That comfort food, that junk food of McDonald's is something that like I reach for, because it gives me that nostalgia, that warm hug, that when I'm feeling really like challenged and on edge, I shy away from. So that has been one of my rites of passage, and I'm acknowledging and aware of that now, and I'm rewriting that narrative so that not to hate or shame or feel guilty, but to love that inner child that found McDonald's a way to kind of escape the world for a little bit.
Wow, what a powerful association. What a powerful association. Like, I laughed when you said you felt like more manly when you went to the value meal, but I also felt some truth in that as well, of like, I can eat more now. And I had an eating disorder for a good 3 years. And that was my biggest source of pain when I was about 16 years old. And because I was chubby as a kid. And I was like, if I could just get a 6-pack like Zac Efron, all my problems will go away. I'll feel better about myself. I'll get girls. And so that's what I focus on obsessively, to the point where I would binge on food, and then I would make myself throw up because I felt like I couldn't have that. I was going to get fat again. And so I developed this association, I think, with the comfort food of salty food, more masculine, where I learned from my therapist at the time the sweet foods are more feminine, because I was craving my dad's love. And I didn't know that at the time, but I had this association with food that when I did see my dad, I saw my dad maybe like once or twice a year from age 6 to 19. And every time I would see him, we would eat lots of junk food every time. And that was kind of like my connection. And so it's so interesting for me to look back on that and realize, because at the time I was like, why am I doing this? I felt so low in willpower. I was judging myself so much. And I was like, why can't I just eat healthy? Just not put that in my mouth. Like, why can't I do that? But there was this super strong emotional pull to do that. And as soon as I realized that it was, like you're saying, for you, a rite of passage, for me, a way to connect with my dad, compassion was pretty easy. And that was actually when the whole process started to change for me. But I think it's really important that we learn the deep reasons why we do things, because especially when we judge ourselves for something, because everything we judge ourselves for, I guarantee you, and that we can't stop, I guarantee you it's a protective behavior. Some part of the intention of that thing is there to protect you.
Yeah.
And as soon as you can realize that, compassion becomes natural. With compassion and acceptance comes healing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Beautifully put, brother. Beautifully
Yeah.
put. It reminds me actually, ultimately, rites of passage for me are about a man becoming a boy, a girl becoming a woman, right? Like stepping into a new chapter. It could even go from like adulthood to eldership, right? And with that comes new levels of responsibility. And as I alluded to at the beginning around sovereignty and stewardship, those two are initiations. And when I fell into being sovereign, acknowledging that my body is a temple, that I am a king, this is my kingdom, I tend to my people, I serve my people, my planet, the less I've been driven by those unhealthy life choices because I acknowledge and I recognize the impact, right? And then it goes into stewardship, and suddenly you're like, wow, like these aren't just bad for me, they're bad for like the planet. The idea of all the resources that go into making a burger, for example, right? And so it then becomes a deeper embodiment of these principles. And so it's not just about, oh yeah, I'm going to eat healthy. It's like, even the idea of eating, being in reverence, blessing the food, being grateful for another day, right? Like that's how I feel my life is transforming into in this new rite of passage for me. It's life is a ceremony.
Wow. Yeah. That's beautiful. And it brings so much more depth to the behavior when you realize everything that goes into making it. It's not just there's a burger on my plate and I'm so excited to eat it. It becomes holy shit. There was a farmer there. There was all this production. There were, hormones, and there was people involved, and people are getting paid to put it together. And like I'm a big believer now that where we put our money is like our vote for the kind of world we want to live in. Because money is what runs the world in many ways. And where we put our money is usually what grows.
Yeah. Energy, the
Yeah.
exchange of resources. Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that a little bit if that's
Please.
okay.
Yeah.
I agree. And, I was having a conversation today with my cousin around well-being and
Yeah.
how that's such like a hot topic, like a hip life choice, right? Like to have
Yeah.
a yoga teacher training, and not speaking or judging anyone at all. Like it's beautiful that this has now become mainstream. And yet, like, where's that money going? How's that being invested in? Who's got access to these modalities? And so, as a melanated brother, someone who's acknowledging more and more my ancestry and my responsibility as a community leader, it's like, how can I get well-being into areas of the world that don't have access to these things? Because the rite of passage in many places is like top dollar, right? Like who has the money to give you this experience to take it to the next level? And I believe that everyone should have access to those tools.
Yes.
So, part of my next chapter, this transformation, this transmutation, this, I'll just call it that, is bringing those tools to the world at large.
I love that, brother. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. There's even simply like once a week going in and teaching people that are at safe injection sites or homeless shelters, teaching them simple internal work tools can be powerful. Or I mean, the work that Sacred Sons is doing, I believe you're connected with them, correct? Sacred Sons, you work with them?
Yeah, I do a few things with them.
Yeah, yeah. Sacred Sons is doing very incredible work as well with creating, like changing society. It's more than just coaching, it's a movement that they've created there, and it's beautiful to watch. And I'd like to touch back into the power of brotherhood and some of the intangible effects of brotherhood. I'd like to touch into some of that because I think there's just an energy when you're with other men with an intention in the right space. I have chills on my body right now. There's power in it. There's power in it, baby. And I want to touch on that because it's something that I think we don't have. And I want to quickly share my my rite of passage that I experienced going from middle school to high school. So there's a freshie, what's called a freshie party, where the
Can you tell me what
freshmen,
ages they are? Because we call them something different in England.
what do you guys call them?
Well, we don't say high school, middle school. So just what ages were you? So I've got a bit of
Oh,
context.
okay. It was 15 to 18 is the last is
Okay.
high school.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's right at that nice prime age.
Mm.
A bit of a late bloomer in puberty, so kind of just
Mm.
coming into my own like puberty wise as well. Yeah. I wish I could, grow the little mustache like I do now. But anyways, so my initiation was basically I'm walking home from the party and these four guys are like, hey, like come down here by the lake. And I knew like, okay, they're gonna do something to me, you know? Like these are the guys that are like 18 and I'm 15. It was me and my friend. And what they ended up doing was paddling me. So they had a big skateboard. They put me against the fence and I had like my butt stick out and they came and took a full and all four of them did. And luckily I was a little bit drunk, so I didn't fully feel the pain, I think it was. But I was bruised for 2 weeks on my ass and like my lower thigh. And that to me, in a way, it kind of felt good, actually. I should start with that because in a way I felt there was some rite of passage happening unconsciously. I was unaware when I was 15 years old, but it almost felt good in a way because I didn't have that growing up with my father. And so in some ways, it kind of felt good to feel kind of accepted by these older masculine figures. In other ways, I was like, well, this fucking hurts. Fuck you. I don't like this. So there was both. And so that was my experience. And I never did that to the 15-year-olds when I got there because at that point I was like, that's just ridiculous. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
So that was my experience. And I would say relatively it was not good compared to like a proper ceremony and experience in nature like you're talking about or something. Let's talk about now the power of brotherhood and changing our relationship with the masculine, because there's many men that like me had to have a craving that or a missing piece that wasn't filled. And what I love that Robert Bly says, he's like, if you're not being admired by an older man, you're wounded. So let's talk about that a bit.
Well, thank you first of all for sharing that experience, that memory. It's really interesting, right? Isn't it? When we look back on it and be like, oh, well, actually, I kind of accepted and maybe even enjoyed it because, like you say, it's like, yeah, I'm one of them.
Yes.
However, for me, that is all born out of wounding other brothers who are hurting, right? And they're passing that down a bit like this ancestral trauma that gets passed down through generations. Whereas what we do with Brotherhood with Sacred Sons, my brothers, my international brothers from America to now Australia to Africa, all over Europe, we've been activating this first half of the year, is what we say, iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. So when you can stand toe to toe with the bro, outside of competition, outside of comparison, purely from the heart, compassion, cooperation, right? Building that community, it doesn't feel like out there in the world with the rat race, bros are trying to pull each other down to climb to the top. What we're doing is holding and lifting one another up.
Yeah.
And that's all born through like going into this work, being able to touch your edges, being able to meet your fears, being able to cross the threshold, being witnessed by the container, right? The power of observation is so like it's in our atoms, right? You know, you think about those quantum experiments, and so to be witnessed, to be seen in that way builds trust, builds resonance, and allows brothers to truly like sync up so that we can again support, collaborate, communicate clearly with honesty, right? Be of integrity, be whole because we're a unit, and start building a brighter future.
Yeah, I love that. Tell me a little bit about that brighter future. What do you see? What's possible?
I can speak for myself. I've had this vision for about 10 or so years of being a grandfather with grandkids, standing on a mountaintop looking at this community that we've co-created. And that's all about, like I said, all these principles. You know, my values are family, my values are friendship, my value are honesty, of integrity. And so to build, and truth, actually, I should say truth. We're stepping into the era of truth. And so say it, my elder Cabo shared that this past weekend. So yes, that's how I view this brighter future of the land, working with the land, being stewards, but also sovereign, right? Accountable for ourselves. No leaky, messy energy, no more toxic this or that, just leveling the playing field, potentially even dismantling systems that have kept us at a low vibration. like I said, that tuning fork. It's time to clear out the gunk, the junk, and be the channels that we were born to be.
Aho, brother.
I went.
I win.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, this has been a beautiful time, dude. I'll finish off with last question here. We can wrap up pretty soon. Um, what do you feel you have within you that's unique and that the world needs?
Mm. It's a good question. One that I've maybe never asked myself, actually.
Yes.
Just saying that, I can feel like this energy kind of coming from my back, over my shoulders, down my arms. And the reason why I feel like it could be a challenging question to answer, because I am a human being, and the way I describe a human being is like the human aspect is the identity, right? That's the ego, that's the hair, the clothes, the swag, and the being is spirit. Being is timeless, spaceless, as Muji Baba says, the isness, just that still silence that just is and is of all and nothing. So what's unique within me is that I am but a light ray shooting through that prism of human experience, through that lens. And I have my ways, I have those gifts that the ancestors have presented throughout eons of suffering and struggle to birth this new earth of the old ways before ego and greed and power, control got in the way. It's Kali Yuga. So my unique gift is that I am a expression, a divine spark in its unique form that will only exist in this moment, and yet it's of that eternal flame. Our oldest living ancestor, the fire on this planet that came from the stars, our ancestors, the star beings, right? Star seed. And so that gift, and the way that I've been through mentorship, been able to like sum it into a concept, a human symbol, is I'm a home walker. I'm just walking one another home back to the truth of themselves and their authentic expression.
Yes, thank you for that, and certainly needed in the world. I think we can agree on that. My reflections from you today has been just a beauty. You seem like you have a beautiful expression, the way that you channel your words, the way the sounds that you make, the energy that you bring, the playfulness, the excitement. Yes, exactly. That is what I'm talking about. And it's beautiful. And I want to just really acknowledge you for that and honor you for that, because in my world that I live in, I respect that. It's unique, it's powerful, it's inspiring. You are certainly being a light for many men, I'm sure, and many men to come. So thank you very much for being yourself, because it's genuinely inspired me. I'm not just saying that to jack you up. I'm saying really it's been meaningful to get to witness you, and it's inspired me to be more free in my expression, to connect to my body even more, into my sound. So it's been great to have you on the show today. Is there any last message you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, first, prayers up. Kale, one of the leaders, one of my mentors, I'm actually doing his online spirit ecology course at the moment for those who are interested in tapping more into the ways of the people, the origination.
Yes.
Kale, Kale, spirit ecology. So his is very much like, send it up. Any of these praises, any of this being witnessed and being celebrated, it's not this body. It is just that channel. It goes back up to the ancestors for they were the ones who are here first, and they're the ones who will continue just through us, through our seats. Final message is, yeah, love yourself. You know, it's so important in this day and age to stay true to you, however that looks. And so I always say, look, words, worlds, worth. Be cautious of your words. If you're being critical of yourself, if you're putting yourself down, if you're criticizing and judging others, take note of that. Journal, make a little tally every time you say something nasty in your mind, right? And that will then start to reform into the world that you live around. If you start to use the affirmations, the light side of the moon to express your being. I am love. I am light. I am sociable. I am a friend. I am a father, a good father, right? Then you will start to notice your world shifting around you, and that then will convert into your worth, your self-worth, what it means to be this, and how valuable your time, your energy, your presence is. And you will value you because others value you just as much.
Boom. Boom. Take a sip of that and take that one home, guys. That was dope. Yeah.
Chef's kiss. Thank you, brother. Yeah, just thank you first.
Huge pleasure, dude. Huge pleasure. Men's Work Coach on Instagram. He's got his one-on-one offerings on there, other stuff. You can learn about him. He's dope. Check him out for yourself. And until next time, my friends, live a life that's true to you. Thank you.